Conquer Your Fears. A powerful Stoic story about becoming fearless. Fear. It is the one enemy every person will meet. Some people spend their entire lives running from it. Others learn to face it. And those who face it discover a truth that changes everything. Fear is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of transformation. This is the story of a young man named Marcus. Marcus was not weak. But he believed he was. Every dream he had was stopped by the same invisible wall. Fear of failure. Fear of rejection. Fear of losing. Fear of being judged. Every opportunity looked dangerous. Every challenge felt impossible. Every decision became another reason to hesitate. As the years passed, Marcus watched other people build successful lives. Friends started businesses. Some traveled the world. Others built families and careers. Marcus remained exactly where he had always been. Not because he lacked talent. Not because he lacked intelligence. Because fear had become the ruler of his life. One evening, after turning down another opportunity, Marcus walked alone through an old stone path outside the city. The sun had almost disappeared behind the mountains. The air was cool. The path was quiet. As he walked, he noticed an elderly man sitting beneath a large oak tree. The man's face showed the marks of age, but his eyes were calm and steady. Marcus sat nearby without saying a word. After a long silence, the old man asked, "What is chasing you?" Marcus looked around in confusion. "No one." The old man smiled. "Then why do you keep running?" Marcus lowered his head. He understood immediately. He wasn't running from people. He was running from fear. For several minutes neither of them spoke. Finally Marcus whispered, "I'm afraid of failing." The old man nodded. "So is everyone." Marcus looked surprised. "Even strong people?" The old man smiled again. "Especially strong people. The difference is that they refuse to let fear make their decisions." Those words stayed in Marcus's mind. Before leaving, the old man stood, looked toward the horizon, and spoke one final sentence. "Courage is not born after fear disappears. Courage is born the moment you move despite fear." The next morning, Marcus woke before sunrise. His heart was filled with uncertainty. The old fear returned immediately. "Stay in bed. Wait until you're ready. Tomorrow will be easier." For years he had obeyed that voice. Today he made a different choice. He stood up. He dressed. He stepped outside into the cold morning air. It was only a small action. But it was the first victory over fear. That day he began running every morning. Not because he loved running. Because every difficult step reminded him that discomfort would not destroy him. Weeks later, he joined a public speaking class. His hands shook. His voice trembled. His heart pounded so loudly he thought everyone could hear it. When his turn came, he almost walked away. Then he remembered the old man's words. Move despite fear. He took one step forward. Then another. His speech wasn't perfect. He stumbled over words. He forgot sentences. Some people noticed. But something unexpected happened. He survived. And that realization changed everything. Fear had promised disaster. Reality had delivered growth. From that day on, Marcus made a promise to himself. Every week, he would do one thing that scared him. Some weeks he spoke to strangers. Some weeks he applied for opportunities he believed were beyond his reach. Some weeks he learned new skills. Some weeks he simply chose honesty when it would have been easier to stay silent. Each challenge strengthened his mind. Each victory weakened fear. Months later, Marcus stood at the foot of a massive mountain. The climb would be the hardest physical challenge of his life. Other climbers looked confident. Marcus felt nervous. As the climb began, the path became steeper. The air grew thinner. His legs became tired. Several times he wanted to turn back. Then he noticed something. The strongest climbers weren't climbing because they felt no fear. They were climbing one careful step at a time despite fear. Marcus slowed his pace. He stopped comparing himself with others. He focused only on the next step. Hour after hour, he continued climbing. Finally, he reached the summit. As he stood above the clouds, watching the sunrise paint the sky with gold, he realized something powerful. The mountain had not become smaller. He had become stronger. That day Marcus understood one of the greatest lessons of Stoicism. The obstacle was never the mountain. The obstacle was the fear inside his own mind. Years later, people admired Marcus's confidence. They called him brave. They believed courage came naturally to him. They were wrong. Every important decision still brought fear. The difference was that fear no longer controlled him. He had learned that courage is a habit. Like discipline. Like patience. Like wisdom. It grows stronger every time you choose action over hesitation. Then life gave Marcus his greatest test. A dream he had worked toward for years suddenly collapsed. His plans failed. His savings disappeared. Friends doubted him. Some advised him to quit. For a moment, the old fear returned. It whispered, "You'll never recover." But Marcus smiled. He had heard that voice before. Instead of obeying it, he asked himself a different question. What is the next right action? That question changed everything. He stopped worrying about the entire future. He focused on the next step. Then the next. Then the next. Months later, he rebuilt what he had lost. Not because he never felt fear. Because he refused to surrender to it. That is the secret. Fear never completely disappears. But every time you face it, you become a little stronger. Every challenge becomes another lesson. Every obstacle becomes another opportunity. Every difficult moment becomes another chance to build the kind of character that no storm can easily break. So if fear is standing in front of you today, remember Marcus. Do not wait until you feel fearless. Take the first step while your hands are still shaking. Speak while your voice trembles. Move while your heart races. Because courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the decision that your purpose is greater than your fear. Conquer your fears. And you will discover that the greatest prison was never around you. It was inside your mind. The moment you break free from that prison, your life truly begins. This story naturally continues into part 2, where Marcus faces betrayal, loss, failure, and his greatest test of courage, building the foundation for a full-length YouTube series. Conquer your fears. Part 2, The Fear That Tried to Break Him. Marcus stood at the top of the mountain as the morning sun painted the sky with shades of gold. The wind was cold, but his heart was calm. For the first time in years, he felt stronger than the fear that had once ruled his life. But as he looked across the endless horizon, he remembered something the old man had told him. Every victory over fear prepares you for a greater challenge. At the time, Marcus did not fully understand those words. Soon he would. Months passed, and Marcus continued building the life he had always wanted. His confidence grew. His discipline became stronger. People began to notice the change. Many asked him how he had become so fearless. Marcus always gave the same answer. I am not fearless. I simply refuse to let fear make my decisions. One afternoon, Marcus received an unexpected opportunity. A respected company invited him to lead a major project. It was the biggest opportunity of his career. Success could change his future forever. Failure could destroy his reputation. The night before accepting the offer, Marcus barely slept. His mind filled with questions. What if I fail? What if everyone discovers I'm not good enough? What if I disappoint the people who believe in me? The old voice had returned. The same voice that had stopped him years earlier. For a moment, Marcus considered walking away. It would be easier. Safer. More comfortable. Then he remembered the mountain. He had not reached the summit because he felt confident. He reached it because he kept climbing. The next morning, he accepted the challenge. The first weeks were difficult. The project was more complicated than he expected. Deadlines were tight. The team disagreed on important decisions. Problems appeared every day. Some employees lost confidence. Others wanted to quit. Marcus felt the pressure growing heavier. One evening, after everyone had gone home, he sat alone in the office. The room was silent. He stared at the unfinished work spread across his desk. Fear whispered once again. "You're not capable. You're going to fail." Marcus closed his eyes. He took a deep breath. Then he remembered another Stoic lesson. You cannot control the outcome. You can control today's effort. He stopped worrying about the final result. Instead, he focused on the next task. One problem at a time. One solution at a time. One step at a time. Slowly, the project improved. His calmness inspired the team. His discipline gave others hope. Months later, the project became one of the company's greatest successes. People celebrated Marcus. They praised his leadership. They admired his courage. But Marcus knew the truth. His greatest victory had happened long before the project succeeded. It happened the moment he refused to surrender to fear. Not long afterward, life tested him again. This time, the challenge was deeply personal. His father became seriously ill. The doctors could not promise recovery. The uncertainty weighed heavily on the entire family. Marcus spent long days at the hospital. The endless waiting became exhausting. Every ringing phone caused his heart to race. Every conversation with the doctors filled him with anxiety. For the first time in years, Marcus felt powerless. He wanted to control the situation. He wanted to remove the pain. He wanted certainty. But life offered none. One evening, while sitting beside his father's bed, Marcus remembered the old philosopher's words. Courage is not controlling life. It is remaining steady when life cannot be controlled. Those words gave him peace. He stopped asking questions that had no answers. Instead, he focused on what he could do. He encouraged his father. He supported his family. He stayed present. He remained calm. Eventually, his father recovered. The journey had been long. The fear had been real. But Marcus discovered another truth. Sometimes courage means fighting. Sometimes courage means waiting with patience. Years later, Marcus became a mentor to young people searching for direction. One young man asked him, "What is the biggest fear you've ever conquered?" Marcus smiled. It wasn't fear of failure. It wasn't fear of rejection. It wasn't fear of losing. The young man looked confused. What was it? Marcus answered quietly. The fear of believing I wasn't enough. The room fell silent. Marcus continued. Every other fear grew from that one. When I stopped measuring my worth by other people's opinions, my life changed. He explained that many people live inside invisible prisons. They fear judgment. They fear criticism. They fear making mistakes. They fear looking foolish. Because of those fears, they never discover what they are capable of becoming. Marcus looked at the young man and said, The world will always have critics. But the loudest critic is often the one inside your own mind. Defeat that voice, and very little can stop you. As the years passed, Marcus often returned to the mountain where his transformation had begun. Each visit reminded him of the person he used to be. A young man controlled by fear. Now he stood there as someone who understood that fear is not an enemy. Fear is a teacher. It reveals where you must grow. It reveals where courage must be built. It reveals the doorway to your greatest transformation. One final time, Marcus climbed to the highest point before sunrise. The wind moved through the trees. The sky slowly turned from darkness to light. He looked toward the horizon and smiled. Life had given him victories. Life had given him failures. Life had given him joy. Life had given him pain. But every experience had shaped his character. He realized that courage is not a single moment. It is a daily decision. A decision to keep moving. A decision to keep believing. A decision to keep acting even when fear whispers that you cannot. As the first rays of sunlight touched the mountain, Marcus spoke softly to himself. I will never let fear decide my future. That became his promise. And it became the message he shared with everyone he met. If you want to conquer your fears, Do not wait until they disappear. Take the first step while you are still afraid. Speak even when your voice shakes. Keep moving when doubt fills your mind. Stand up after every failure. Learn from every setback. Trust that every difficult season is making you stronger. Remember this Stoic truth. The obstacle is not your enemy. Your fear of the obstacle is. Master your mind, and you will master your life. Because the strongest people are not those who have never been afraid. They are the ones who chose courage again and again until fear no longer ruled them. That is the path of the Stoic. That is the path of true strength. And that is how you conquer your fears, one brave decision at a time. Conquer your fears. Part 3: The Final Battle Within. Years had passed since Marcus made the decision that changed his life forever. He had climbed mountains, overcome failure, faced uncertainty, endured pain. Every challenge had taught him one lesson. Fear never disappears completely. But neither does courage. The difference between ordinary people and extraordinary people is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward anyway. One quiet morning, Marcus received an invitation to speak before thousands of people at a leadership conference. Years ago, the thought would have terrified him. Now he accepted without hesitation. But as the day approached, something unexpected happened. The old fear returned. What if you forget your words? What if people laugh at you? What if you fail in front of everyone? Marcus smiled. He recognized that voice. It was the same voice that had followed him throughout his life. The difference was that he no longer believed everything it said. The morning of the event, Marcus woke before sunrise. Instead of worrying about the audience, he took a long walk. The streets were quiet. The sky slowly turned from darkness to gold. He remembered the elderly philosopher who had once changed his life beneath the old oak tree. He whispered the lesson that had guided him for years. Courage is action in the presence of fear. When Marcus stepped onto the stage, thousands of eyes looked toward him. His heart beat faster. His hands felt cold. But he did not run. He spoke calmly. Not because he felt fearless. Because he had learned to act despite fear. The audience listened in complete silence. When he finished, they stood and applauded. Many believed they had witnessed confidence. Marcus knew they had witnessed discipline. Months later, another challenge arrived. A violent storm struck his hometown. Homes were damaged. Businesses closed. Families lost everything they owned. Fear spread through the community. People waited for someone else to solve the problem. Marcus gathered volunteers. He organized food deliveries. He helped rebuild damaged homes. He encouraged those who had lost hope. One young volunteer asked him, "How do you stay calm when everything is falling apart?" Marcus answered, "I don't focus on everything. I focus on the next right action." That simple answer inspired everyone around him. Day after day, they continued rebuilding. Not because the work was easy. Because every small action created hope. Months later, the town recovered. People remembered the storm. But they also remembered the courage that rose during it. Years continued to pass. Marcus grew older. His hair turned gray. His face carried the marks of experience. But his mind remained strong. One evening, he returned to the mountain where his journey had truly begun. The climb felt slower now. Age had changed his body. But not his spirit. When he reached the summit, he looked across the endless horizon. He remembered the frightened young man he once was. The man who avoided challenges. The man who let fear make every decision. That version of himself felt like a stranger. Marcus realized that fear had never been his greatest enemy. His greatest enemy had been believing fear deserved control over his life. As the sun began to set, he noticed a young traveler climbing toward the summit. The young man looked exhausted, discouraged, ready to quit. When he finally reached the top, he collapsed onto a rock. "I almost turned back," the young man admitted. Marcus smiled. "So did I." The young man looked surprised. "You?" Marcus nodded. "Many times. The young man stared at the horizon. I don't think I'm strong enough. Marcus pointed toward the valley below. Do you see how far you've climbed? The young man nodded. You didn't become stronger at the top. You became stronger with every step. Silence filled the mountain. Then Marcus continued. Most people think courage is one great act. It isn't. It's hundreds of small decisions. Getting out of bed when you don't feel like it. Trying again after failure. Speaking the truth when it would be easier to stay silent. Standing back up after life knocks you down. The young man listened carefully. Marcus smiled. That's how courage is built. The wind carried those words across the mountaintop. As darkness slowly covered the sky, Marcus reflected on the greatest lesson of his life. Fear had once been the prison that kept him small. Now it had become the teacher that made him stronger. He understood something that few people ever discover. Every fear hides a doorway. Behind the fear of failure is growth. Behind the fear of rejection is confidence. Behind the fear of uncertainty is wisdom. Behind the fear of change is transformation. If you refuse to walk through those doors, your life remains the same. If you choose courage, your world begins to expand. Marcus took one final look at the horizon before beginning the walk home. His journey had never been about becoming fearless. It had always been about becoming stronger than his fear. That is the Stoic way. Do not ask life to remove every obstacle. Ask for the wisdom to face them. Do not wait for perfect confidence. Take action while your heart still races. Do not hope that fear disappears. Train your mind until fear no longer decides your future. Because every great achievement begins with one courageous choice. Every meaningful life is built by people who acted while they were afraid. And every strong mind is forged through challenges that others choose to avoid. So whatever fear stands before you today, remember Marcus. Take one step. Then another. Then another. The path will not always be easy. The journey will not always be comfortable. But every step forward is a victory over the person you used to be. In the end, the greatest conquest is not over a mountain. It is not over another person. It is over the fear within your own mind. Conquer that fear, and nothing will stop you from becoming the person you were meant to be. That is true courage. That is true freedom. And that is the greatest victory of all. This concludes the three-part Stoic story arc of Conquer Your Fears, with Marcus's journey progressing from fear to courage to lasting inner strength.